Yeah, it's time for the Ink and Thread podcast. This podcast discusses design, development, and sourcing of apparel, spotlights fashion trends, and features industry creatives and entrepreneurs. Ink and Thread is the official podcast of Amber Creative. Sit back and relax with your hosts Jeremy Picker and Angelo Montiel.
Welcome back to episode 4 of the Ink and Thread podcast with your host Jeremy Picker
and Angelo Montiel.
And we have stuck to our guns for 4 weeks straight, and there's a huge train passing by, so if you hear background noise, that's it. Last week we talked about goal setting for 2020, resolutions, goals, visions, whatever you want to call it. It's something that it was good for me to go back and listen to. You know, there's some things that come out when we're talking that aren't planned, and it ends up being a help to me, you know, for what we're talking about. And then the thrift store finds. How's your thrifting been since last week, Angelo? Have you got to go to any? Or
so far so good. I've been to a couple more, finding cool pieces, so I will upload soon.
Awesome. Follow his Mile High Retro Supply Company on Instagram to see Angelo's latest finds. So today we're going to mix up the structure a little bit. We like to do things in threes. So on this episode, we're going to talk about 3 different topics. One, to break it up easier when we're going back and creating the videos, but also to keep us on point a little more and get more structured as we, you know, evolve in this podcasting world. Real quick, Angelo, what are a couple podcasts that you have been listening to recently that you would recommend for people to check out?
I listened to Group Chat with my friends Drama and Murphy D and Anna. Pretty cool podcast. They talk about politics, business, art, pop culture, and it's one of my favorites.
Some of the podcasts that I enjoy has been Gary Vee, which he came out with something daily, but I just found out today he's doing it weekly, so I'm going to have to figure out what to do during the week for my podcasts. Another one I've been listening to is the one I was recently on, Common SKU. It's more industry focused for the promotional products industry, but I've learned a lot from that. Conan Needs a Friend, When I Need to Laugh. It's a great one. Not for the kids, but it's pretty funny. So today, the 3 topics we're going to kind of go over is going to be template art versus custom art. You know, being a design, development, and production sourcing podcast, we want to educate the public and, you know, bring up these conversations that might be taboo for some to talk about, but we aren't afraid because we're very opinionated about a lot of things in our industry. So number 1 would be template art versus custom art. Number 2, we're going to get into creative development, how to go beyond your basic screen printed t-shirt or embroidered hat. You know, I think part of being in this industry, and it is creative, for some people, it's just a widget, you know, they really don't care. It's just something that they fell into or they are selling. But for us, we want to help people think outside of the box and really just to think beyond a design on a garment or product. So we really want to, you know, help people figure out ways to come up with ideas. You know, while we like to be fashion forward, not all your customers are going to be fashion forward. So figuring out how can you be creative with, you know, some of the small options that, you know, a corporation might give you, but you can always push the envelope. And then the third one is going to be headwear. You know, guys and gals are wearing hats these days, you know, even to work. You know, luckily I get to wear hats to work. One, because I have no hair and it's cold and I want to keep my head warm, but again, it's a fashion statement. So we're going to go talk about stock headwear being things that you can get off the shelf, and then full custom headwear options, and then the styles and decoration options from those hat styles. All right. Number 1, template art versus custom art. Angelo being the art director here and a designer that can illustrate basically any style. Obviously, he is a fan of the custom art versus template art. But Angelo, please kind of give some background, because I know you've been involved in template art before, but custom art is your passion, to where you really feel, that creativity as a designer. So I'd love for you to share with everyone kind of the template versus custom in your eyes as a designer, and then I'll kind of chime in from the other side, being, creative director as far as I can't design, but, figuring out how to create something that is unique, but also knowing when to do that.
My career began as a production artist, so my everyday task was to name drop designs that were kind of template. They were pretty generic, kind of boring, kind of really tamed. So my job was to change the name drop on each of those designs close to 100 times a day. So
wow,
it got kind of boring, kind of generic, and just really boring.
So can you explain name drop just for those that aren't kind of familiar with that term?
Sure. So once the design is created, like the template is created, that design will have a generic name, like let's say it's California, and the name drop would be, I would need to change California to Colorado. So that would be one name drop. Certain designs have from 3 to 10 name drops, and I would need to change each of those text layouts to be for the new client.
So you basically see, if you're in California and Colorado, you could basically see the same design, just different letters.
Correct. And that is, it's fast and efficient, but it's still it's too generic. Hundreds of clients or customers might have the same design, so it's not unique. The taste level is pretty minimal.
Conservative.
Your supervisor or your art director being involved and kind of teaching you how to name drop things, correctly printing, and how to size, things depending on location. So it would be training, but it's also on a personal level. What looks good to you and what you think the client's gonna like. So.
Now, when you're designing it, from what I remember, it was still pretty creative and it had some cool textures, but then there's that whole other side of our industry that is not even creating that custom name drop template. They're just using from, a clip art software, and using even flatter, kind of more basic design. So, there's almost levels to the different types of templates that you could have. Even though some are still cool, it's not, while it's original once, as soon as you use it for a different company, then it's not original anymore, right?
And I was lucky to move up in that company and become the creator of the template. So I had the freedom to create to design as creative as I wanted, but there's still rules, to this market, and I needed to follow those. So I was in a box. Luckily, I'm out the box.
So I feel like on a lot of the template, and the more I learn about, let's say, resort wear specifically, the buyers really like just picking a design. And, this goes against kind of our philosophy that it's actually big in the band space too, is I'll like it when I see it type of mentality. Which, for our philosophy, it's completely backwards. It's why not curate something that is completely custom to this client or this band, with a lot of thought in giving one design versus 15 designs to say, all right, I like it when I see it. There might not be any cohesiveness, or, you know, it's based on just the buyer, versus, you know, if you're a resort, why wouldn't you not want to have your own full custom designed curated line that they couldn't find at any ski resort in Colorado? So, you know, those are the things that, again, we're opinionated about. I know some of those resort wear companies, you know, 20, 30, 50, $100 million. Cool. But at the end of the day, I pride ourselves, you know, in that customization. Again, being an idea factory, which I feel like we are, like the ideas are the hardest things. And I think that's why a lot of people go to the template, because, you know, they want to monetize the whole supply chain.